Hi everybody, welcome to Doc's Shop. My name is Tara, I'm Doc, and this is a video tutorial really just kind of taking you through some of my products. This particular product is a writing product, and I chose the narrative version. There's versions for all of the Common Core standards, but this one is about narrative writing and hopefully everything that you need in order to teach writing. The big product with all three, I have narrative, I have informational, I have opinion, and they're all aligned to the Common Core. But I wanted to show you what each one has with it. This one is the narrative writing, and it's got all kinds of different components to it that will help you to teach narrative writing and help your kids to love to write, hopefully. None of the resources are prescribed in a way that you have to follow in any particular order. So these are some of the teacher resources that I created, and you can use them in a million different ways depending on your teaching style. My goal is always just to get kids to love writing. So with that said, looking at the standards is imperative, and this right here is just your writing standards, your Common Core writing standards for narrative writing for fourth and fifth grade, and just a little space for you to brainstorm how you want to teach those different lessons. I wanted to include anything that you needed in order to really break it all down and help you as you were going. And so I did anchor charts for all of the Common Core standards for narrative writing, and each one, this one is on characters, and you can use them as like electronic anchor charts to guide your mini lessons. This one is obviously on plot. You can also print them out and give them to kids as a resource. This one is on story details, but you have an anchor chart that really pulled out all of the Common Core standards, and I dissected them so that you would have all the things that they need in order to be successful in writing. Point of view, difference between first and third person, and kind of just an anchor to get you started with each mini lesson that you do throughout the time that you teach narrative writing. Then I took it a little bit further, and the next set of materials they can be used sort of as anchor charts or to guide your lesson. That one is sort of breaks apart the different parts of a narrative piece. This is the vocabulary that Common Core is associated with narrative writing, and these can be used. I use them as student handouts, or electronically on Google Classroom. But for the kids to have in front of them, like outstanding openers, we do that as a mini lesson, but then they can have that as a resource when they are trying to figure out how to open up a piece of writing. So each one of these things are sort of take the standards and dig a little bit deeper than the anchor chart, which gives more of an overview. These dig a little bit deeper into the parts so they can really understand what they have to put together when they try to do dialogue, when they try to evaluate characters. This is connecting words and transition words, and what does that mean, and why do you need them? So these are things that you can use with the whole classroom or as handouts for your students as they go through the writing process, and describes the conclusion and what are the components of it. Most importantly is that the kids know what the target is. And so this right here, I revisit often throughout the unit, and kids can go back through and look at what are they expected to do. And these are the writing narrative standards, just like on the teacher piece, but with 4 categories where kids can track their own progress, whether or not they've hit those targets. And we'll revisit that later on. And these are different activities that you can use with students to practice and kind of dissect different pieces of writing and find the components of it and what makes writing successful. And so these are some student activities. You can do them as a whole group. You can do them in small groups. You can do them individually. The first one is dissecting an essay with the different parts. I wrote all of the essays. This one was called The Reese's Picnic. And you give it to the students, you give them the essay, and then they have to color code all the different parts, the transition words, the opener, the conclusion, all the different pieces of narrative writing. They would dissect it, and then this is the answer key. So they could look at it, and again, you could do this as whole group or individually, but they can see what are the parts of that piece of writing and how are they put together. For me, having lots of examples is something that's helps my students to be really successful. So I wrote a ton of essays that are narrative essays. This one is the election, and then there was a series of activities that goes with each one of these essays. This one is about moving to a new place. I tried to choose subject matter that fourth and fifth graders can understand and relate to. This one is about climbing to the top of the Eiffel Tower, a teenager who's afraid of heights, moving to a different community and with new faces and things like that. It's an interesting story. The next one is the ball game. That's a true story about my nephew who got to throw out the first pitch and do all kinds of amazing stuff at a Tigers game. Then with each of the essays, there are activities, so you can have students looking for their openers, looking for the topic sentences and the details and the different descriptions, and identifying those different parts of narrative essays. But you have the essays to use as mentor texts so that they can practice with the skills that they're going to need in order to write their own narrative essays or narrative pieces. Plot mountain is always important, and so this is a example of a plot mountain, and that kind of shows up in different places. Word choice and different techniques using dialogue is so hard, but some different ways to practice that. The next category is focused on planning and what students need, and I tried to just create as many different things as I could think of that would help students. And not everyone is going to need every little piece of this, but as a teacher you can figure out who needs what depending on what they're writing about. And it's kind of designed, well, it's not kind of designed, it's designed so that students get to decide what are they going to write about. And so there's lots of topic ideas and the different things that you need to be able to do. So you have that plot mountain again. And if you're doing something like that's just a way to brainstorm different ideas for your topic. We talk about seed stories and watermelon stories with that big idea and a small idea. So these are just some different graphic organizers. This is a map of your heart, and so a kid can color in a map of their heart and see what things fill up their heart and get ideas on what they want to write about. They can do maps of anything, their neighborhood, their friends, just to kind of get ideas. And then once they have their ideas, these are the story elements so that they can kind of put together what's happening and before they begin to do their writing. This is just a way to kind of keep track of details, the plot details. Developing those characters, and some students might need 10 of these depending on what story they're writing, but to develop the characters and see who those characters really are. And we know that every story has to have a problem and a solution. And so brainstorming what that problem is and how they're going to solve that problem, they can do all of this stuff in the planning stages, comparing their two characters or two of the characters and seeing the differences between them and how they relate in the story. Can help them prepare, and revisiting the standards and letting the kids see where are they at. Do they understand these different components? This next part is taking all of the stuff that they've done and just start writing. And it sort of lays it out. Some kids won't need this. This is a very prescribed way of doing it. But for some, they might need that extra structure when they're just getting started. And so this is just a way to say, here's your introductory paragraph, your body paragraphs, your conclusion, but not everybody's going to need that, but if they do, they have it right there. The editing checklist, everybody's going to need that. So this kind of helped them go through what needed to be edited, make sure they've done all the grammar stuff, and they have their writing done after that, and they can do a final draft. What I intended to do with this was just create something that you could use in your classroom the way that you would teach, not the way that I would teach.